When HOA President Patricia illegally listed Jake's ranch for sale without permission, she thought she'd finally get rid of the trashy neighbor. But Patricia had no idea Jake would buy her access road and trap her in her own mansion. What happened next shocked the entire community. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. Jake Martinez had always been a simple man with simple dreams. After 20 years of working construction in Dallas, he'd saved enough money to buy his piece of paradise. A small ranch with a beautiful lake in the Texas Hill Country. The 40-acre property wasn't fancy, but it had everything Jake needed. Clear water for fishing, rolling hills for his horses, and enough space to breathe after decades of city living. What Jake didn't expect was Patricia Henderson, the self-appointed queen of Willow Creek Estates, the upscale subdivision that bordered his ranch. Patricia was everything Jake wasn't: wealthy, entitled, and absolutely convinced that her money gave her the right to control everything around her. She lived in a massive stone mansion that overlooked Jake's lake, and from the moment he moved in, she made it clear that she considered his presence a personal insult. The trouble started on a warm Saturday morning in April. Jake was on his tractor, clearing brush near the lake, when a white BMW came roaring down his dirt driveway. Out stepped Patricia Henderson, a perfectly coiffed woman in her 50s wearing clothes that probably cost more than Jake's monthly mortgage payment. "Excuse me," she called out, marching across his property like she owned it. "Are you the new owner?" Jake turned off his tractor and climbed down, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yes, ma'am. Jake Martinez. And you are?" "Patricia Henderson, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association." She said it like she expected him to bow. "We need to discuss your property." Jake looked around his ranch, confused. "What about it?" Patricia pulled out her phone and started showing him pictures. "Your animals are visible from our community. Your equipment is an eyesore. And that lake." She pointed accusingly at the crystal clear water. "Our residents use that lake for recreation. You can't just fence it off from civilized people." "Ma'am, this is my property. I bought it fair and square, fences and all." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Young man, you clearly don't understand how things work around here. Willow Creek Estates is a prestigious community with property values to maintain. We can't have some ranch operation disrupting our peaceful environment." The way she said ranch operation made it sound like something dirty. Jake had dealt with snobs before, but Patricia's combination of arrogance and thinly veiled classism hit a nerve. "With respect, ma'am, what I do on my land is my business. If you don't like the view, you're welcome to build a taller fence." Patricia's face flushed red. "Don't get smart with me. I have connections in this county. I know people who can make life very difficult for someone who doesn't want to be neighborly." After Patricia stormed off, Jake figured that would be the end of it. He was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Patricia launched a campaign of harassment that would have impressed a military strategist. She called the county inspector about his septic system. She reported him to animal control for excessive livestock noise from his 3 horses. She even called the fire department, claiming he was burning trash illegally when he had a perfectly legal burn pile clearing dead branches. Each visit from officials ended the same way. Jake was in complete compliance with all regulations, and the officials apologized for bothering him. But Patricia kept calling. The real escalation came when Jake decided to build a small dock on his lake. He'd pulled all the proper permits, hired a licensed contractor, and was careful to stay well within his property lines. But the day construction started, Patricia appeared with a sheriff's deputy. "Officer, this man is destroying our community's recreational area," she declared dramatically. "He's building unauthorized structures on public water." Deputy Rodriguez looked tired, like he'd dealt with Patricia before. "Ma'am, this is private property. He can build whatever he wants as long as he has permits. But our residents have been using this lake for years. We have established rights." Jake stepped forward with his permit folder. "Officer, here's my survey showing the property lines, my building permits, and my deed. Everything's legal." Deputy Rodriguez reviewed the documents and shook his head. "Ma'am, there's no issue here. The lake is entirely on Mr. Martinez's property." Patricia wasn't giving up. "Well, what about access? Our residents need to get to the lake somehow." "They can ask Mr. Martinez for permission," the deputy said patiently. "It's his property." That night, Jake's contractor called with bad news. "Jake, I'm sorry, but I can't finish your dock project." "What? Why not?" "That lady, Patricia Henderson, she's been calling my other clients, telling them I do shoddy work, threatening to get my license revoked. I can't afford to lose my business over this." Jake felt his anger building. Patricia was now going after innocent people who were just trying to work with him. This had gone beyond neighborhood disputes into outright economic warfare. But Patricia's biggest mistake was yet to come. The following week, Jake was in town getting supplies when he saw something that made his blood boil. There, in the window of Hilltop Realty, was a listing for his property. His ranch, the land he'd worked 20 years to afford, was advertised as 40 acres with lake, perfect for luxury development. Jake stormed into the real estate office. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, pointing at the listing. The agent, a nervous young woman named Kelly, looked confused. "I'm sorry, sir. That listing was submitted by Patricia Henderson. She said she was representing the property owner. I'm the property owner and I never authorized any sale." Kelly's face went pale. "Oh no," Mrs. Henderson said. She had power of attorney. She seemed so official. Jake pulled out his driver's license and deed. "Call the police. Now." Within an hour, Deputy Rodriguez was back, this time looking seriously annoyed. Patricia arrived shortly after, clearly expecting to smooth things over with her usual mixture of charm and intimidation. "Officer, there's obviously been a misunderstanding," she began. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted real estate fraud," Deputy Rodriguez said, pulling out his handcuffs. "What? This is ridiculous. I'm trying to help the community by getting this property developed properly. You tried to sell someone else's property without their permission. That's a felony." As Patricia was led away in handcuffs, she screamed over her shoulder at Jake, "You haven't won anything. I'll make sure you regret the day you moved here." But Patricia had underestimated Jake Martinez. 20 years in construction had taught him patience, persistence, and the value of strategic thinking. If Patricia wanted a war, he'd give her one, but he'd fight it on his terms. The first thing Jake did was hire a lawyer to press charges for the real estate fraud. The second thing he did was start researching property records around Willow Creek Estates. What he found was very interesting. It turned out that Patricia's mansion, while impressive, sat on a relatively small lot that depended on an easement through a neighboring property for access to the main road. That neighboring property, a small rundown lot with an old mobile home, was owned by an elderly man named Earl Thompson who was struggling to pay his property taxes. Jake paid Earl a visit. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Jake Martinez. I own the ranch with the lake over yonder." Earl was in his 70s, a retired mechanic with gnarled hands and a kind face. "Oh, you're the fellow that's been giving Patricia Henderson fits. Good for you, son. That woman's been acting like she owns the whole county. Mr. Thompson, I understand you might be interested in selling your property?" Earl's face fell. "I hate to, but I can't keep up with the taxes anymore. Patricia's been after me to sell to her for months, but she's offering about half what it's worth." Jake smiled. "What if I told you I'd pay full market value, cash, and you could stay in your home as long as you want?" Earl's eyes widened. "You'd do that?" "Yes, sir. See, your property controls the only road access to Patricia's house. If I own it, I can make sure she learns some manners." The transaction was completed within a week. Jake paid Earl's back taxes, bought the property for a fair price, and gave Earl a lifetime lease to stay in his home for $1 a year. But more importantly, Jake now controlled the private road that was Patricia's only way to reach her mansion. Patricia discovered this when she returned from her week in county jail to find a locked gate blocking her driveway, with a sign that read, "Private road. No trespassing. Authorized vehicles only." She called Jake immediately. "What do you think you're doing?" she screamed into the phone. "Exercising my property rights," Jake said calmly. "Just like you taught me. You can't block my access. I have easement rights." "Actually, you have easement rights across Earl Thompson's property. But Earl doesn't own it anymore." "I do. And I've decided to revoke your access privileges." "This is illegal. I'll sue you." "Feel free to check with your lawyer. I've already had mine review everything. The easement was never properly recorded, so it doesn't transfer with the property. You have no legal right to use this road." Patricia sputtered for a moment before finding her voice again. "Fine. I'll use the back entrance." "What back entrance?" "Your property is surrounded by my ranch on 3 sides and Earl's property on the 4th. This road is your only access." There was a long silence as the reality sank in. "What do you want?" Patricia asked finally, her voice small. "I want an apology. To me, to Earl, to my contractor, and to every county official you've harassed with false reports. I want you to pay my legal fees for the fraud case. And I want a written agreement that you'll stop interfering with my property and my business." "And if I do all that?" Then you can use the road like a civilized human being. The apologies took Patricia 3 days to complete. She had to swallow her pride and apologize to a dozen different people for her behavior. She paid Jake's legal fees without complaint. And she signed an agreement promising to respect his property rights and stop filing false reports. But the most satisfying moment came when Patricia appeared at Jake's door with the signed agreement. "I've done everything you asked," she said stiffly. "Now will you unlock my road?" Jake took the agreement and read it carefully. "Patricia, can I ask you something?" "What?" "Why did you hate me so much from the beginning? I never did anything to you." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, less imperious, more human. "Because you represented everything I was afraid of. I grew up poor, Jake. Really poor. I worked my whole life to build something better, to live somewhere beautiful and peaceful. When you moved in with your ranch and your animals, it reminded me of where I came from. It made me feel like my past was catching up with me." Jake studied her face, seeing something he'd never noticed before: vulnerability beneath the arrogance. "Patricia, there's nothing wrong with where you came from. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something better. But you can't step on other people to keep what you have." "I know that now," she said quietly. "I let my fear make me into someone I don't like very much." Jake walked over to his truck and pulled out a set of keys. "These are for the gate. The road's yours to use anytime." "But Patricia?" "Yes. If you ever try to bully anyone again, me, Earl, or anyone else, those keys go back in my pocket permanently." Patricia nodded and took the keys. "Thank you, Jake. And I'm sorry. Really sorry." Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. Patricia stopped being the neighborhood tyrant and started being just another neighbor. She still lived in her fancy house and drove her expensive car, but she stopped treating other people like they were beneath her. She even apologized to Earl Thompson and helped him fix his leaky roof, paying for materials and hiring workers to do the job right. The transformation became complete when Patricia showed up at Jake's ranch one Saturday morning, not in her BMW but in work clothes, carrying a cooler of iced tea. "I brought refreshments for your crew," she said, setting the cooler down near where Jake and his friends were building a new barn. "That's very thoughtful," Jake said, surprised. "I also wanted to ask you something. My garden club has been looking for a place to hold our spring fundraiser. I was wondering if you might let us use your property. We'd pay rental fees, of course, and clean up afterward." Jake considered this. 6 months ago he would have said no automatically. But people could change, and Patricia seemed genuinely different. "What's the fundraiser for?" "The Children's Hospital in Austin. We raise money for kids whose families can't afford treatment. In that case you can use the property for free. Just clean up when you're done." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Jake. You don't know what this means to me." The fundraiser was a huge success. Patricia's garden club raised $15,000 for the Children's Hospital, and Jake discovered that when Patricia channeled her organizational skills toward helping people instead of controlling them, she was actually quite impressive. At the end of the day, as the last guests were leaving, Patricia found Jake sitting by his lake, watching the sunset. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "It's a free country," Jake said, gesturing to the spot beside him. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the water reflect the orange and pink sky. "Jake, can I tell you something?" "Sure." "This is the first time in years that I've felt truly happy. Not just satisfied or successful, but actually happy." "Why do you think that is?" Patricia thought about it. "Because I stopped trying to control everyone around me and started trying to help them instead. It turns out that's a lot more rewarding." Jake nodded. "My grandfather used to say that the only thing you can really control is yourself. Everything else is just suggestions." Patricia laughed, the first genuine laugh Jake had ever heard from her. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." He was. He also used to say that the best way to get respect is to give it first. "I wish I'd learned that lesson earlier," Patricia said softly. "It's never too late to learn," Jake replied. As the months passed, Jake and Patricia developed an unlikely friendship. She helped him navigate county bureaucracy when he wanted to expand his operation. He taught her about ranch life and let her bring her grandchildren to see the horses when they visited. The other residents of Willow Creek Estates noticed the change too. Without Patricia's constant complaints and power plays, the neighborhood became more relaxed and friendly. People started talking to each other instead of filing complaints. Property values actually went up because the area became known for its community spirit rather than its HOA drama. A year after the road incident, Patricia knocked on Jake's door with an unusual request. "Jake, I've been thinking about selling my house," she said. Jake was surprised. "What? It's a beautiful place." "It is, but it's too big for just me, and honestly it represents a part of my life I'm not proud of. I was thinking about buying something smaller, maybe closer to town where I can volunteer more at the hospital." "That sounds like a good plan. You'll find something perfect." Patricia smiled. "Actually, I was hoping you might want to buy it." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. "Patricia, I can't afford your house. And even if I could, what would I do with it?" "I've been thinking about that. What if we worked out a deal? You could buy it for what I owe on it, which isn't much, and turn it into a retreat center. You know, for city kids to come learn about ranch life, or for corporate groups to do team building. You'd be great at that." Jake considered the idea. It was ambitious, but it could work. His ranch was already set up for visitors, and Patricia's house would make a perfect lodge. "What would you do?" "I'd move into Earl's old mobile home after he passes. He's been talking about going to live with his daughter. It's small, but it's all I need. And I could help you run the retreat center. I know about event planning and dealing with difficult people." Jake laughed. "You certainly do know about difficult people." "I used to be one," Patricia said with a grin. "But I've learned a few things since then." The retreat center opened 2 years later. Willow Creek Ranch Retreat became known throughout Texas as a place where city folks could experience authentic ranch life while staying in comfortable accommodations. Patricia turned out to be a brilliant events coordinator, and Jake discovered he had a gift for teaching people about rural life and values. But the most popular program was their community building workshop, where Patricia and Jake together taught groups about resolving conflicts, respecting differences, and turning enemies into friends. On the 5-year anniversary of their first confrontation, Jake and Patricia were sitting by the lake, watching a group of teenagers from Houston learn to fish under Earl's patient instruction. "You know what's funny?" Patricia said, watching a city kid squeal with delight as he caught his first base. "What's that?" "If you hadn't bought Earl's property and blocked my road, none of this would have happened. I'd still be the neighborhood witch, you'd still be just trying to survive my harassment, and we'd both be miserable." Jake smiled. "Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone force you to look in the mirror." "Is that another one of your grandfather's sayings?" "No, that one's mine. But I think he would have approved." Patricia laughed. "I think he would have approved of all of this." As the sun set over Willow Creek Lake, reflecting the lights from the retreat center and the sounds of laughter from their guests, Jake reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. He'd come to the hill country looking for peace and quiet, and instead he'd found conflict, resolution, and something he'd never expected, a true friend in the most unlikely person. Sometimes, Jake thought, the best victories weren't about winning or losing. They were about helping everyone become better than they were before. And sometimes, the people who challenge you the most end up teaching you the most important lessons of all. The lake reflected the stars now, calm and clear, like a mirror showing not just what was, but what could be when people chose understanding over anger, cooperation over control, and friendship over fear.